A note before the script. I was not able to run web searches in this session, and a Pursue Release 04, dated July 10, 2026, falls outside what I can verify against primary sources. I've written the script so that the tranche's specifics are attributed to the release documentation rather than asserted as confirmed fact, and I've anchored the analysis in verifiable history. The FY 2024 NDAA UAP Records Provisions, ARO, STS-80, prior censor video controversies. Please verify the Release 04 particulars against a primary portal before publication. Markdown 19 video files, 5 geographic theaters, 3 civilian agencies, 1 30-year-old space shuttle recording. According to the documentation circulating under the designation Pursue Release 04, dated July 10, 2026, this is the largest single declassification tranche in the history of the UAP file. Before anything else, a disclaimer this channel owes you. We have not independently authenticated this tranche against a primary government portal. Treat every claim about it, including ours, as provisional. What follows is a forensic examination of what a release like this can establish and what it structurally cannot. Because volume is not evidence. 19 videos without metadata prove less than one video with complete telemetry. The legal machinery behind any release like this traces to December 2023, when Congress folded parts of the Schumer round's UAP Disclosure Act into the fiscal year 2024 National Defense Authorization Act, sections 1841 through 1843. That law created a UAP Records Collection at the National Archives and imposed a presumption of disclosure. What it did not create was the enforcement mechanism. The Controlled Disclosure Campaign Plan and the eminent domain provision for recovered materials were stripped in conference. So the system we're left with is discretionary. Agencies decide what surfaces and when, which is precisely why the composition of a tranche, what's included, what's withheld, is itself the story. The 5 theaters described in Release 04 are not arbitrary. The Yellow Sea and East China Sea sit inside the U.S. 7th Fleet's most contested operating area, airspace saturated with Chinese, North Korean, Japanese, and South Korean military activity, plus dense commercial traffic and a decade of documented drone proliferation. The western United States means restricted ranges, nuclear infrastructure, and test corridors. The Gulf of America designation is itself a dating marker. That name only entered federal usage after the January 2025 executive order. And then STS-80, Space Shuttle Columbia, November 1996. A theater that isn't a theater at all, but low Earth orbit. Let's be precise about what an infrared recording gives you. From a targeting pod feed, you can extract angular size in pixels, apparent angular rate across the frame, field of view setting, sensor polarity, and the behavior of the tracking gate. That's it. Those are measurements of the image, not of the object. Angular size without range is meaningless. A 2-pixel signature could be a 40-centimeter balloon at 2 miles or a 40-meter craft at 40. Apparent motion, without your own platform's velocity vector and line-of-sight geometry, cannot be converted into object velocity. This is the central limitation. Infrared imagery is a bearing sensor. It does not by itself measure distance. We've run this experiment publicly before. The Navy videos released in 2017 and 2020, FLIR-1, Gimbal, Go Fast, were presented as anomalous. Independent analysts, most prominently Mick West, demonstrated that Go Fast's dramatic apparent speed collapsed under parallax reconstruction to roughly 40 miles per hour at around 13,000 feet, consistent with a balloon. Gimbal's rotation, he argued, was the signature of a glare artifact in the pod's optics, not a rotating craft. You don't have to accept those conclusions, but you have to accept the methodology because it's the only methodology available, and it depends entirely on metadata that most release clips do not include. STS-80 is the most historically loaded item in the tranche. Columbia launched November 19, 1996, on what remained for years the longest shuttle mission ever flown. 17 days, 15 hours. Its downlink video, archived and popularized in the late 1990s by Canadian broadcaster Martin Stubbs, shows luminous objects apparently maneuvering above cloud tops. The prosaic candidates have always been strong. Ice crystals venting from the orbiter, orbital debris, out-of-focus particulate matter drifting centimeters from the lens, illuminated by payload bay floodlights, which produces exactly the illusion of a distant object crossing vast distance. Declassifying this footage answers nothing. It only formalizes a 30-year-old ambiguity. Here is what scientific characterization would require, and what these releases characteristically omit. Precise UTC timestamp, platform position, altitude, heading and velocity, sensor line of sight, azimuth and elevation frame by frame, laser rangefinder return, radar track data with correlated range gates, calibration records for the sensor, IFF interrogation results, ADS-B and civil air traffic correlation for the time window, and the original unaltered file container, not a re-encoded, cropped, watermarked derivative. Without the rangefinder or a correlated radar track, no measurement of size, speed, or acceleration is possible. Not difficult. Impossible. A tranche of 19 videos stripped of these fields is a disclosure of imagery, not of data. Then there's the civilian item, designated in the release as FBI UAP PR004. Handheld orb footage from a member of the public. Placed alongside military sensor recordings, it invites a question worth answering honestly. Does it meet any evidentiary standard? Under Federal Rule of Evidence 901, authentication requires establishing that a recording is what it's claimed to be: original file, intact EXIF, identified device, documented chain of custody, and a witness who can be deposed. Consumer footage of an unresolved point light, absent all of that, is corroborative at best. It can support a case built on instrumented data. It cannot anchor one. The FBI's inclusion of it is bureaucratically significant and forensically marginal. The most consequential element of Release 04 may not be any video at all. It's the letterhead. Department of Energy involvement is not novel. It's foundational. The Green Fireball investigations around Los Alamos and Sandia in 1948 and 1949 and Project Twinkle were driven by nuclear security concerns, a thread AARO's own February 2024 historical record report acknowledged. NASA's 2023 independent study team, chaired by astrophysicist David Spergel, concluded the existing data was insufficient for scientific conclusions and called for calibrated, multi-sensor collection. And the FBI's UFO holdings date to 1947. 3 civilian agencies in one tranche breaks the Pentagon-only frame. That's the structural finding. So what should an informed viewer take from this? If Release 04 is authentic as described, it represents a meaningful expansion in scope, geographic, temporal, and institutional. 5 theaters across 3 decades and 4 agencies is not a rounding error, but scope is not resolution. 19 infrared clips without range data, platform telemetry, or correlated radar cannot characterize a single object. They can only document that something was recorded and that someone with clearance chose to release it. The demand going forward is narrow and specific, not more videos, the metadata, the custody records, and a process that outside scientists can actually audit. Until then, we're still looking at pixels.